graphics card prices have fallen and the big sales like October Prime Day and Black Friday are upon us. So it's time to look at the best graphics card to buy in October 2025. Welcome back to PC Builder, I'm Jason. Now, whether you're looking for the best budget graphics card, the best 1440p graphics card, or the best 4K graphics card in October 2025, we've got the pick for you. And we'll look at should you buy now or should you wait. If you like this video, please give it a like and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Quillbot. Oh no, my email inbox, it's completely full again. Maybe I can train Mr. Bear to answer the emails for me. Mr. Bear? Mr. Bear? Luckily, I've got Quillbot. The Quillbot Chrome extension checks my grammar, makes me sound more professional, and can even help me draft emails. Quillbot works wherever I work, in Google Docs, Microsoft Office, my email application, just about anywhere else you can write something. Quillbot also makes it easy to switch from writing formally to a sponsor, then more casually to fellow creators, so it always feels authentic. Training my cat didn't work, but ever since I installed Quillbot, my inbox has been so easy to manage. And you can install Quillbot for free with the link in the video description. Now, before we jump into current GPU prices, let's cover the upcoming sales. First, we got Amazon Prime Day in October, which they officially call Prime Big Deals Days. That goes from Tuesday, October 7th to Wednesday, October 8th. So Amazon's gonna go back to the 2-day sale instead of the 4-day sale that we got for July Prime Days this year. Of course, all other retailers will also have their own competing sales. Newegg's Fantastic and Best Buy's Techtober sales, they start the day before on Monday, October 6th. They go through Sunday, October 12th. Walmart Deals is gonna start on Tuesday, October 7th, and it's gonna run through Sunday, October 12th. Now, Newegg items marked with Fantastic price protection will refund the difference if you buy it before the sale, and it goes lower during the sale period at Newegg, but check out their page for all the details. We then have early Black Friday deals, which typically start around November 1st, or at the latest the first week of November. Now, Black Friday itself is November 28th, which is pretty deep into the month, and typically the full Black Friday sales, they'll usually start earlier that week, though it differs by retailer. One key thing that happens every year is that the most desirable graphics card deals, they usually sell out completely sometime between October Prime Day and Black Friday sales. Now, in some years, the sellout, it's been so extreme that hardly any graphics cards were even left by the time Black Friday rolled around. So keep that in mind. So what kind of discounts on graphics cards can you expect during these sales? Well, every year it's a little different, but analyzing sales in the past 3 years, we typically see the biggest deals on AMD Radeon graphics cards, sometimes up to 20% off, and those deals usually hit their entire lineup, with the absolute biggest deals typically on the most expensive GPUs and smaller deals on the more mainstream graphics cards. On the NVIDIA side, outside of maybe 1 or 2 super crazy deals that sell out very, very quickly, there typically is not much discounting. Now, that's an intentional strategy by NVIDIA as they feel that discounting hurts their overall brand standing. On the Intel side, we don't have enough data to really know, but their GPUs are mostly on the budget segment, so I wouldn't expect huge discounts. Let's jump into current graphics card pricing, starting off with AMD Radeon side, which are mostly the RX 9000 series graphics cards, and then a couple of lower end graphics cards from previous generations still available. The RX 9070 XT price, it's finally dropped down a little lower to $649 from $699, a $50 drop. Now, that's just for the ASRock Challenger model, which is a model designed to hit MSRP and finally hit store shelves in the last couple of weeks. We've also seen the introduction of the Power Color Reaper RX 9070 XT for $669. That's also a drop from last month, including the ASRock Steel Legend Dark version, which unfortunately sold out very quickly. Now, previously, these entry 9070 XTs, they weren't being made because the demand was so high that manufacturers were essentially only making the higher end models, so it's probably a good sign for overall pricing. Meanwhile, the price of the RX 9070 non-XT hasn't really moved at all. It's still stuck at $599, though there are now a couple more models for that price. The RX 9060 XT 16GB, it's finally hit its MSRP of $349, which is the Power Color Reaper model at Newegg. If you look at Amazon and Newegg best-selling graphics cards, the RX 9060 XT 16GB, it's one of the most popular graphics cards out there right now, and prices for the rest of the models have actually crept up by $10 to $20, though during July Prime Day, we did see it hit MSRP on more premium models like the Sapphire Pulse. There's no real change to the rest of the stack except the 9060 XT 8GB model does get a tiny bit cheaper. Moving over to NVIDIA graphics card pricing, and we've seen some weird things in the past couple weeks. Now, starting at the top with the RTX 5090, while the current best price is $2,347, we keep seeing specific models get discounted all the way down to MSRP of $1,999, and then they sell out rapidly. This has happened to the Zotac Solid OC and non-OC models, as well as the Asus TUF and Gigabyte WindForce non-overclock models. It's not clear what exactly is going on here, but the lowest price readily available has actually gone up this month. Meanwhile, we've got some odd GPU sales at US retailer Walmart. The RTX 5080 was $929 for one specific PNY model only, and only at Walmart, and that sale just ended before the beginning of October. Same thing happened with a $499 MSI RTX 5070 and a $379 PNY RTX 5060 Ti 16GB. It's possible that some new pricing is being tested out, or that these might foreshadow bigger discounts to come during the sales. But in the meantime, there just isn't a lot of price movement on readily available RTX 50 series models, though the affordable RTX 3060 12GB model does seem to be drying up with only one left in the US. Intel graphics cards remain at or near their MSRPs for most models. And for those of you shopping for the best graphics card under $200, we've again seen their affordable ARC A580 and A750 graphics cards come back into stock at Amazon for between $179 and $200 US. Meanwhile, the ARC B580 is now solidly MSRP at $249. Now, we don't have any new GPU game bundles this month. The ones from last month are gone, but we do have some interesting GPU news that might influence your graphics card purchasing decision. Now, starting with new testing, Hardware Unboxed found that Intel has significantly fixed its CPU overhead issues with the ARC B series graphics cards like this one right here, the ARC B580, at least in some specific titles. Their testing showed that performance with more budget-friendly CPUs like the Ryzen 5600 showed better performance at 1080p, though they didn't test at 1440p, although they said that was coming. Even given this new information, we still recommend at least a Ryzen 5600 or i5 12400 CPU and playing at 1440p for Intel Arc B-series graphics cards, but those are pretty affordable CPUs. What about all those rumored graphics cards that are supposedly launching this fall? Starting with the RTX 50 Super series, so the rumored RTX 5070 Super, the 5070 Ti Super, and the 5080 Super, seems like in fact they are all coming in early 2026 at the earliest, at least according to even more rumors. Now, I've covered all these cards in the past. They're mostly upgrades to the VRAM amount. So the RTX 5070 Super is going to go from 12 gigabytes to 18 gigabytes of VRAM. The 5070 Ti and 5080 Supers are both going to go 24 gigabytes of VRAM. Now, that's always nice, but the RTX 5070 Super, that's going to be the biggest winner here, moving off that 12 gigs of VRAM. But it doesn't seem like we're going to get those until between Q1 and Q2 of 2026. We also had rumors on the Radeon RX 9070 GRE 16GB graphics card launch and an ARC B770 16GB graphics card launch. At the time of filming, nothing new on these fronts, though they both were rumored to be launching this month. If they do, I will leave a note in the pinned comment below. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, honestly, prices for graphics cards are really favorable right now, especially at the more mainstream end of it. While the game bundles from last month were insane value, I told you so by the way, I suspect we'll see some sales kick in very, very soon, but only on select models. Now, trying to get the absolute lowest price on a graphics card is a total crapshoot, with the best deals usually selling out very, very quickly and stock running out. Now, every year we see the same comments from folks who waited just a little bit too long trying to get the biggest discount, and they left disappointed because they basically come away with nothing. So my general advice is that this is the best time to buy a graphics card with prices at or near their MSRPs. Now, discounts on other components like CPUs, motherboards, cases, power supplies, and the like, they're usually much better than what we see for GPUs. So if you're looking to build an entirely new system, I'd focus most of my time and effort on saving money on those components and then just get the best GPU deal that you can find without waiting too long. But at all budget levels, I'd say you have a green light, as GPU prices during this period are typically among the lowest we're going to see in any given year. Let's jump into our specific recommendations for best graphics cards to buy in October 2025 in every budget category. Now, everything's linked down in the video description. Check out those links for current pricing and availability in your region. And we're also going to include a list of the best deals that we can find throughout October, so we'll keep that updated. Starting off with the best graphics card under $200 US, or let's call it at least around $200, because we're going to include some graphics card values up to about $230. And I'll also put up our GPU data for FPS comparison as well as current pricing. Here's your options right now. You can pick up the ARC A580 for just $179, or the slightly faster A750 for $199. Now, stock on these GPUs, it's kind of thin. They do often sell out. We've also got the ARC B570 10GB for $229. Now, the nearest to $200 graphics card from NVIDIA, it's the really terrible RTX 3050 8GB for $214. And AMD has the RX 6600 and 7600 8GB for around $220 to $230. Personally, I'd probably go with the ARC A580 8GB for $179. It's cheap and likely do the job. If you have to have a non-Intel GPU, I'd likely go with the RX 6600 or 7600. If you're hoping for GPU deals during Prime Day and Black Friday, this is usually not the category where we're going to see them, but you might get lucky. If you do have just a bit more to spend, check out the next category as the choices do get a lot better. All right, jumping up to the best graphics card under $300 US in October 2025. Now we're going to add in the ARC B580 12GB at $249, as well as the RTX 5050 and 5060 for $249 and $299 respectively. AMD's RX 9060 XT 8GB is also available for $269. And we've got the RTX 3060 12GB just around $260. Now, if you don't mind buying Intel, I still like the ARC B580 12GB here for $249. Even with the recent Intel and NVIDIA partnership deal, I think Intel's going to continue supporting ARC GPUs for at least a couple years until they can launch new products in 2028 or 2029 with that NVIDIA partnership. And if they can get the CPU overhead issues tamed, as we've seen in some select titles, that's great for older system owners. But if any of that scares you off, I'd lean towards the RX 9060 XT 8GB because price to performance, it's significantly better than literally anything else up here. It's got FSR4 upscaling, which is just as good as DLSS 4, though game adoption obviously isn't quite as widespread. But it does only have 8GB of VRAM. I still like the RTX 3060 12GB too if you want NVIDIA, as it can take advantage of DLSS 4 and has 12 gigs of VRAM, though it is quite a bit slower than everything else. For those looking for deals, I don't expect huge ones in this budget category. Often there are deals on like the RTX 3060, but if you can stretch to $350, you really should look at the next category. Let's look at the best graphics card under $400 US, which is where you're going to find the best budget 1440p graphics card in 2025. I've kept in the three top graphics card from the previous tier for comparison. And we also have the cheaper but still absolutely terrible value RTX 5060 Ti 8GB graphics card, along with the crazy good value RX 9060 XT 16GB. Finally, at its $349 MSRP, it's a great place for this graphics card, and I do think that we'll see deals on other 9060 XT 16GB models, though it may only be down to the $349 MSRP, so it's mostly that you'll get a slightly nicer model rather than save money over the lowest cost one. In the US, there still are some RX 7700 XT 12GB GPUs listed for $329, but unless there's a huge discount on them, they're just not as good as deals over the 9060 XT, as they have less VRAM and they lack FSR4 upscaling. Unless the RTX 5060 Ti 16GB at the $379 deal comes back, the 9060 XT 16GB, it just doesn't have any competition, and there's no way I'm buying an RTX 5060 Ti 8GB for over $300. If we do see that 5060 Ti 16GB come back down to $379 again, then I would likely pick it up over a $349 9060 XT just for the wider adoption on DLSS 4, but I personally would not pay that much more for it. Moving up to the best graphic card under $500 US, and this is essentially the RX 9060 XT 16GB versus the RTX 5060 Ti 16GB competition for the best budget 1440p graphics card. That is, of course, assuming that we don't have a $499 RTX 5070 12GB deal, as we've seen flashes of in late September. And we don't have the $379 5060 Ti 16GB that was only one model at one retailer in the US. So if the 5060 Ti 16GB stays at $429 or more, the 9060 XT 16GB, it maintains a huge $80 price advantage. It's just impossible for me to recommend the 5060 Ti 16GB. At that point, it's just overpriced hands down, and NVIDIA should probably cut the price to be more competitive. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad GPU, it's just not worth the price premium for similar performance. Moving over to the best graphics card under $600 US, and this is where last month I actually recommended the RTX 5070 12GB with the Borderlands 4 game bundle, and the whole thing was at MSRP, over the 9070 16GB. But no game bundle now, and without significant price cuts, like the $499 model that we saw at Walmart briefly in September, I still like the RX 9070 16GB even at $599 over a $540-ish RTX 5070 12GB. Both have great upscalers. The 9070 is very slightly faster than the 5070, but has enough VRAM to be relevant for much longer, and the 5070 is VRAM limited in heavy ray tracing, so it can't even really claim that advantage over the 9070. Of course, with price reductions on the 9070 XT, if you have just a little bit more to spend, you should probably check out the next price category. Let's move on to the best graphics card under $800 US. I could, of course, do a best graphics card under $700, but the only GPU there would be the RX 9070 XT 16GB at $649. Because the cheapest RTX 5070 Ti, it is MSRP, but it's $749. So this is really a battle for the best 1440p GPU, but the reality is that no matter which one you buy, you're gonna win. Both the graphics cards have 16 gigs of VRAM. They're both very fast and perform similarly at 1440p or even 4K. Then the 9070 XT, it might be slightly faster. And both have great upscalers in DLSS 4 and FSR 4. That does make the $100 price premium pretty difficult to recommend paying for the RTX 5070 Ti. Personally, the only reason I would do that if I was into heavy ray tracing or path tracing games, and there aren't that many of them, then I would probably get the RTX 5070 Ti. Now, will we see price discounts during sales for either of these GPUs? I honestly think we will, but if history repeats itself, you're probably going to be disappointed by these small price cuts you'll see on the RTX 5070 Ti, while the 9070 XT will probably get some pretty steep ones during sales. But it has been a very weird year, and there are indications NVIDIA does want to get rid of existing GPU stock ahead of the RTX 50 Super Series launching next year. So we'll have to wait and see what deals roll out during Amazon Prime Day and afterwards. Moving over to the best GPU 2025 in October for any price, and we're going to add in the RTX 5080 at its MSRP of $999 and the RTX 5090 occasionally for MSRP, but usually for about $2,300 to $2,600, depending on the specific model that you want. If we see sales on the RTX 5080 as we saw one model at Walmart in September down closer to $900, then I think the RTX 5080 becomes more enticing, despite it only being about 15% faster than the RTX 5070 Ti or RX 9070 XT, but about 50% more expensive. But it has always been the case that the highest end graphics cards are always the worst in price to performance, so if you want something faster but can't fork over RTX 5090 money, then I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Now, obviously nothing compares to the RTX 5090, but its reign as the king of GPUs is going to come to an end, likely in a little over a year, so I'd grab one while you can. Will we see discounts on these graphics cards for Prime Day or Black Friday? I think possibly for the RTX 5080, maybe down to about that $900 price point, but as with previous years, they're likely going to sell very, very quickly if that happens. I don't expect the RTX 5090 to go below MSRP. To me, the MSRP is essentially the sale price. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description. Check out those links for current pricing and availability in your region. We're also going to put together an entire list of current sales for Amazon Prime Day, early Black Friday, and all that, so check that out as well. Of course, if you got value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content like, did you check out our best Ryzen motherboard Fall 2025 guide? We completely redid all of our recommendations for best Ryzen motherboard. If you're putting the system together and you want a Ryzen motherboard, watch this before you buy one. And we'll catch you on the next one.